So we've reached a moment where we should expect to see the faces of the actors we've come to know as our beloved Avengers in other movies and roles, including this newest entry from Netflix, Extraction, starring Thor, or Chris Hemsworth, as he is more commonly known, as a black ops mercenary tasked with rescuing an Indian drug lord's kidnapped son. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm on the couch. All right, this is Ronald, and I am on the couch after watching Extraction. Extraction, a movie on Netflix, directed by Sam Hargrave, screenplay by Joe Russo, story by Andre Parks, Joe Russo, and Anthony Russo, based on the graphic novel Ciudad by Andre Parks, Joe Russo, and Fernando Leon Gonzalez, starring Chris Hemsworth, Rudhraksh, Jaiswal, Randeep, Hooda, or might be Hooda, Golshifteh, Farahani, Pankaj, Tripathi, Priyanshi, Painyuli, and David Harbour. I apologize if I butchered those names. It is quite a possibility that I did. It was not my intention. Extraction. This was a good movie. I was sitting here watching it, and I was riveted by the whole movie. The plot of which is, there is a kid in India who is kidnapped. It is the child of a drug lord in India who is kidnapped by a drug lord in Bangladesh, and it's meant as a slight. So he kidnaps this kid, and the Indian drug lord sets into motion a series of events that puts Chris Hemsworth on the job of finding and extracting this kid. So, it's not a story that we haven't heard before. The hardened veteran has to go out there and save the MacGuffin. Save the child, who in this case is the MacGuffin. That being said, I'm watching this. It's Saturday afternoon. It's like about 3:57. This was like a perfect movie for right now. Perfect movie for it. This morning I went on a walk. We're still in quarantine, so I went on a walk to get some fresh air, came inside, had some lunch, sat down and watched this movie, and it was perfect. And I think this movie would have also been perfect like on a weeknight, or I don't think I would have been disappointed if I went to see this in theaters. I probably would have left thinking that it was missing something, but I would not have been completely disappointed. My ear just came on. Let me turn that off real quick. So unprofessional. There we go. So, where did I leave off? Okay, so watching this, and I think this would have been good. And I wouldn't have been disappointed in the theater. I think that's where I left off. But I would have probably left saying that it was missing something. I will probably forget that this movie exists. It will evaporate from my mind. As a recommendation, I will recommend it to people. But in terms of the plot was just very thin. It wasn't that it was predictable, but it was just very thin. It was like, okay, they're like, this is what we're going to do. They say that pretty early in the movie, this is what's going to happen. And all of that kind of happens, and the movie continues. Now, where I think the movie did some of its best work was in the third act. And while it was not heavy on character development, they did some character development service, I will say. And by saying that, I mean, they did the bare minimum so that we cared enough about these characters. So we were like if they would have done any less, I would not have cared what these characters were doing or saying, but they did enough that I was like, okay. I'm in it. I care about what everybody's doing here, why everyone's doing. I care. Like I'm care enough to stick with you for an hour and 57 minutes. That's how long this movie is. Doesn't feel that long. It's action almost the entire time. Even the slow parts have a little bit of action in there. Excuse me. So sorry. Again, it's just so unprofessional. But watching it, it's definitely a dad movie. I think a lot of dads will like this movie. You get the hardened. I wanted to say American, but I realized Chris Hemsworth is Australian, and he's playing an Australian in this movie. But he's still doing all the things that Americans do in movies when they go into to save someone, i.e., going in with one, large gun, and I don't want to name the gun because I know someone's going to be like, that's not what that's called, with a silencer on it and just shooting everyone and all that. But we're supposed to empathize with him. And Chris Hemsworth's character's name is Tyler Rake. We're supposed to emphasize, Lord, what is wrong? Emphasize with him because, he has some sort of past, some sort of pained history, which gives him some sort of attachment to this child and a responsibility in order to pull this child out and deliver him where he needs to be delivered. So there's twists in the movie that are important, and they definitely keep you engaged in the movie. That being said, about halfway through, I was like, man, this movie is good, but it reminds me of something that was a little bit better, and that's Man on Fire. Like, this movie is Man on Fire. When you get to the very end, I'm just like, yeah, this is Man on Fire. Like, this is like, this isn't even a little bit not Man on Fire. In that Man on Fire probably had some more detective work by John Creasy, played by Denzel Washington, in it. This movie was more of a straight up rescue film, i.e. he had the MacGuffin with him the whole time, whereas in Man on Fire, it's about him going to go save the MacGuffin, aka the veteran. Google MacGuffin, you'll know what it means after this. But in a lot of ways other than that, it really is Man on Fire. Which isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. I really liked Man on Fire. I'm sure many of you did as well. A very good movie. I used to quote it all the time like an idiot. When I used to say, forgiveness is between them and God. It's my job to arrange the meeting. I used to be like, oh my goodness, what a line. Oh, that's crazy. But yeah, this is pretty much that movie. That being said, for it to be on Netflix, for me to be sitting here and just putting on a Netflix movie that I didn't have to pay $9.99 for or go to the theater to see, I mean, fantastic. I mean, just like, if you're just going to turn it on and you're going to get up from your couch and be like, that was good, and then go take a nap or do whatever else you're going to do. You won't think about it that much. But I mean, for what it is, I mean, sitting on a couch watching a movie, it's good. I enjoyed it. With all of that in mind, I thought I was going to have a problem seeing Chris Hemsworth in this role. I was like, am I really going to be able to detach him from Thor? And it was almost like immediately I was just like, nope, not Thor. He's Tyler Rake. Get it. And I thought I was going to have a way bigger problem with this because I've seen him as nothing but Thor the last few years. But I mean, he does a very good job of, it's probably smart for him to jump from one action role to another one. And especially in a role where he's wielding a gun and saving someone, that's probably the best move to transition from being like a superhuman to this type of role. So I think that was a good move for him, but I mean, totally believable in the role, did a great job acting it. I really have no complaints on his end. The two other actors, Rudhraksh Jaiswal and Randeep Hooda. I think Randeep Hooda is popular in Hindi films, and he did a great job in this movie as well. Watching him, I was like, wow. And as soon as I was watching him, I was like, this dude is a somebody in India. Like, we don't know him in the United States, but I was like watching him act and the way he was moving and talking. I was like, oh yeah, he's a somebody in India, definitely. And I don't know if it's on the Bollywood scene. I think it's specifically on the straight up Hindi movie side. And forgive me, anybody listening that knows, that has way more of a depth of knowledge of foreign films in this case, because I might be saying something wrong, and that's not my intention. I'm just coming from pure ignorance. Forgive me. That being said, was great in this movie. So honestly, if you wanted, the kids are off doing something, this is not a movie for young kids. There's a lot of violence. I mean, and I think and that's, to be honest, if you have like young teenagers, they might be fine with this. There's nothing like super graphic. There's a couple things implied, like that's going to be graphic, but then it's kind of a cutaway as it happens. So, and maybe a sound or something, but it's not even like, they're not even overdoing the sound to make you like queasy or anything. So I think this I would probably give this a PG-13 rating, as it is on Netflix, so it does not have one. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I'm looking at it now. It's rated R. I would give it a PG-13 rating. But it's very violent, and the action is very good. It is, to me, it is as close as they can get to John Wick style action without it being John Wick, meaning that they're still doing a lot of kicking, a lot of punching, but the shooting is like, you could tell it's like, oh, they did their homework on this with some of these shots that they're doing. So, but yeah, enjoyable. And I'm a person who enjoys seeing a good action movie and thinks that action is underrated in films. Meaning that it's not celebrated enough. Like there's no category in the Oscars or stunts or action or anything like that. So, but yeah, that all being said, excellent movie, great action, good acting, all of that. Missing some elements. I still left feeling like, the plot is just a little bit thin, which isn't important for you to enjoy the movie on your couch. That's not important. But for me, I'm a tough critic. So I'm like, that's enough. That's enough for me to say that this could have been a 4-star movie. But because of that, it's only a 3-star movie. It did exactly what it came to do. It entertained me. It sat me on the couch, said, hey, this is what we're going to do. It did that. I feel good about it. And I would, if I saw Chris Hemsworth, I would shake his hand and say, good job. And Sam Hargrave is a first-time director. So far, if this is his first movie, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what more he could do. So excellent. 3 stars. Don't bring your kids. I mean, if they're like 13 and up, you can go ahead and bring them. But if they're squeamish, anybody under 13, I just don't think people need to be seeing this type of violence. I'm just always apprehensive about showing it to kids. I mean, if they're playing a lot of Modern Warfare and all that stuff, then sure, show this to them. But like, be concerned about the seeds that you're planting in their children as they grow up and seeing this type of violence. With that in mind, Leaving the Theater is a production of ohitsBigRon Studios. Theme music by The Mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. To find out more about this show and other ohitsBigRon Studio shows, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ohitsBigRon. That's at OHITSBIGRON. If you like this show, check out our sister show, Time Well Spent. Leaving the Theater will be back soon, but until then, I'll be here on the couch.